All right, well, I guess it's just you and me. Well, what I would normally do with the class is I would introduce myself and then get you guys to introduce yourselves as well. Great, so you can hear me all right. You should see a video as well of my camera, but maybe not. Okay. Again, I'm Dr. Bradley. I am going to be the facilitator of this course for the next 5.5 weeks, and looking really forward to getting to know you and hopefully other people that'll participate next week. I'll try to get invites out earlier and get some more participation. I'm not sure what a typical turnout would be in the first week. I'm guessing it's probably somewhat low. But anyway, I am an online instructor for a couple of different schools, and I also teach at a physical school in Eastern North Carolina on a variety of topics. I teach some computer science classes and basic electronics and wiring and that sort of thing. I also do work for a telecommunications company. That's my quote-unquote day job. I work nights, and so with that being said, if you are a late night crasher on your schoolwork and you have a brick wall that you've hit, you can always call or text me at odd hours, Monday through Thursday, and I'm usually pretty much available unless there's a lot going on. I work at night in an office alone, so I have pretty much free reign to work on what I need to, and I can step away and have a conversation if the need arises. I sleep during the day a lot, so with my odd hours, if you have any questions for me, the best thing to do is to throw me a text or an email, and I will get back within the same day, typically. So that's about it for me. Just more information on the bio page, but I want to just talk about me. I've talked to you a little bit, Corey. So you're in Minnesota, and you're a computer science major, is that right? I can't remember you saying something about that. All right, he says lecture at 9, you'll have to disconnect. Okay. So in like 12 minutes. Okay. Are you in the central time zone? Mm-hmm. You must be. Okay. Well, great. Let me just take you through the slides that I've got prepared then. It looks like there's not a whole lot. Chapter 1 is fairly short and sweet. So let me just see if I can share that with you now and get that going. First thing to hit share, share content. And we'll do that. And get that up and going. So yes, we'll be talking about web analytics. We are in module 1. Get that way here. All right. Our objectives by the end of the module should be that you'll be able to describe web analytics and summarize the use and quantify some benefits and drawbacks. And this ties into our discussions this week. So if you've already done some research on that, I think you've actually done some work there. A couple of you have, and that's really good. Web analytics. When we're really talking about web analytics, it's really just an offshoot of what we call big data analysis. It's an extension of that same tool, which has actually been around for a very long time. There's just some new applications that we're going to talk about. One interview described data and web analytics as the new oil. And what do they mean by that? Well, basically, the new oil is another way of saying that it's the newest commodity. It's the big thing. You know, early on, transportation took a big leap with the steam engine, and then later on, electricity, and of course, in the early 90s, the internet really started growing and took off, and that was the next big change. And now, as time goes on, technological changes and leaps are occurring closer and closer together. And the newest commodity is data and what we do with it. We'll be talking about web-specific informatics, and basically that entails A lot of benefits for taking the massive amounts of data that we generate every day and using it for business purposes. And basically, in terms of web analytics, what we're talking about is answering some questions. If you run a web presence of any kind, you're interested in who are the visitors. We also want to know where do the visitors come from? Were they led there by a link, by a partner, or what? We want to know what they're looking for on your site. And tying to that, did they find what they were looking for? And we also are interested in how much time is spent on the site. So all of these questions come into play with web analytics, and they basically give any company with a web presence an edge if they can answer them succinctly, and that's the challenge. So as I said before, it ties into data analysis, and we want to know who uses data analysis. Well, the answer in shorthand, everybody does. Everybody uses data analysis. I like to think about how we employ statistics in our lives. If you've ever gone to apply for an automobile loan, anytime you buy groceries, especially early on, if I'm not sure where you're at, but when I was single and not earning so much, my routine was to go to the grocery store to do some quick math, what's in the account, what do I need, and I would assign an importance to each item on the list. Whatever's the most important is higher up on the list, and it gets the priority. And that, in a kind of a succinct nutshell, is a very microscopic version of data analysis. It takes regression, it assigns weight to important factors, and that's how we make decisions. And we do it all the time. We don't even realize it. Another use of data analysis, advertisements are personalized. And we see that in our web presence, especially in social media. And in the interest of time, I know that you've got to be gone in a few minutes, so I'll just go through the last part of this stuff here, data analytics. In the text, we are told that they believed in 2015 only 15% of Fortune 500 companies would adopt big data in order to remain competitive. That number is probably a little low. We've learned that as of 2018, nearly 60% of companies embraced big data, and it became the new buzzword. Spending on big data last year topped almost 190 billion. And move on to jobs and analytics. That's one of the biggest booms now in the computer science umbrella of skills. It was estimated that by 2015, 4.4 million careers would be available. The number is probably a little closer to 3, but it's still a booming business, particularly with skills involving Python and SQL, and what I like to throw in there is data visualization. And what I mean by that is basically technicians that not only can code these Python and SQL tools, but can take it and turn it into something meaningful to executives who make the important decisions. So these jobs include IT system analyst, healthcare data analyst, operations analyst, data scientist, and data engineer. Now, I included those two intentionally because they're not exactly the same thing. Those last two I want to talk about real quick. The data scientist and the data engineer do differ in that the scientist typically is a PhD level terminal candidate, and they earn just a little bit more. Coming into an entry-level door job, they could probably pull down close to 6 figures average. The data engineer, almost that high, but the data engineer generally operates at what I like to call a 30,000-foot view. They take a larger body of information and work with it, whereas the data scientist is probably a little bit more specific in the skill set, although a lot of companies use those terms interchangeably. But that's just something to think about. Data statistics, the text tells us, and also several other references that I checked with, 2.5 quintillion bytes of data are generated daily. Currently, estimates are that we generate 1.7 megabits of data for every second for every person on Earth. And this part interested me and shocked me. 90% of the world's data was generated in the last 2 years. And with all that information, what can we do with it? Well, we're not doing a lot with it at all. That's the problem. 75% of data in business goes unmined, and there's a whole vast potential gold mine of information out there for companies to use if they know how to use it, if they know how to handle the large amounts of data. It's in all kinds of industries that data analysis is used. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we'll hit some of the top ones. Credit risk modeling, that's a big business. Market risk modeling, something we're pretty familiar with if you ever do any investing. And what we're interested in this class, web analytics and demand forecasting for those that work in logistics. All of these are very important. They're all kind of the same thing. They're all about taking historic information and trying to extrapolate the needs in the future. So in the text, there was a dated model of the data process, and I kind of updated it. I just took what they had and tossed it. The newer model, I think, looks more like this. We see a problem, we identify it, and we want to take people who understand the system and can make it clear by taking the data collection, cleaning it up. And by cleaning it up, what I mean is removing outliers, extremes on either side of the bell curve, and making sense of that. And once the data is collected and analyzed, what we can do is form a hypothesis, and then the important part is we communicate that to individuals who make the decisions. Job profiles fall into different categories. Basically, there are more, but the most succinct summary is the business expert, you got legal experts, and those who actually mine the data. So, and these, within these different categories, fall into specific jobs. The business experts could be a job like a credit portfolio manager, fraud detection expert, e-commerce management. All of these things are important. Legal experts can include those who go by credit risk modeling, and it's important because with all of the news that we've had about the unethical things going on, it's important to understand that the legal and moral boundaries are observed. So now more than ever, legal experts are employed with a specific emphasis on data mining, how it's used, and whether or not privacy laws are observed. And we're actually going to touch on that more in depth, I think, in chapter 2. And of course, data analysts, they obviously perform analysis, and they understand not only the techniques and the software and the technical aspect of it, but they need to be really good at presenting that. You have to be a good communicator. You have to be good with the charts and the graphs by communicating as much information with as little on-screen data. The people that make the decisions don't like a lot of numbers. They like simplicity. So you have to earn the skill of communicating these things in a nice, clear presentation, and there's a little bit of an art to it. And finally, we can talk about data science. Basically, it falls into different categories, but to sum up, we want to say that we have statistics, which is it falls in linear and logic regression, among others. Machine learning, which involves making decisions based on binary information. If you've ever seen a decision tree or an algorithm written out in a simple way, does it happen this way, yes or no? No, okay, it goes to this decision. Is the answer yes or no? Yes, boom, moves over to another decision. And that's how that works out. Those are also based on statistics and linear regression. And there are, in recent years, we're talking more and more about biological analytics. We're employing neural networks, and we're employing biological models. And that's actually where the statistics and the big data kind of originated, but you can take many of the same biological models and employ them in a business environment. That's one of the things that I actually wrote about in my research. Predator-prey models can be applied in a lot of different ways. And so I want to talk a little bit more about regression. What I mean by that, if you haven't heard the term, is it's basically a set of algorithms which assigns a weight to a particular variable. It makes it more important. It sends it up the line. And it helps decision makers, and it helps to augment the decision-making process. And there are efforts now in place to sort of create almost an artificial intelligence tool that helps us to continue to make the right decisions as quickly as possible. And now, Corey, it's now 9 o'clock Central Time, so that's pretty much it. I gave you the really quick icing on the cake version. I hope that was helpful to you, and I'm going to cut it short so you can meet your other meeting. And next week, I will finish it. I said we'll back it up an hour. Instead of starting at 8:30, I'll start at 7:30, finish at 8:30. That way, there'll be time for you to get in with your next class. If that's, in fact, I think I'm going to do a different day too. I'm thinking I'll back it up to Wednesday, but I'll put it in the announcements. I'll put it in the announcements. So if you have any questions at all, be sure and let me know. And I will note that you were here. And we're going to use a password system in these. I don't know if you've done these before, but I was told to give everybody a word to use that they've seen the meeting. We'll say Star Wars. So if you go to the assignment page where you're supposed to upload a document, just upload a document that says Star Wars. And actually, I can put in that you passed or that you attended. Everyone else that watches the recording, once it's